And soon, her campaigns whispered directly to students' aspirations. Click-through rates rose like a standing ovation. Yields soared before the rest of the industry knew a new best practice had been born. Today, we name another Forge character and peek behind the curtain.
You are listening to the Innovation Forge, the #1 podcast on adaptive enrollment management, exploring the data, marketing, and strategy that fuels higher education. Here's your host, David Dysard.
Welcome to a Coffee and Coals episode. Our time to peek behind the curtain and learn a little more about the Innovation Forge. So, grab some coffee, get comfortable, and don't forget to stoke those coals. Today, I announce the next name of our enrollment aces. But first, we'll chat about the new music of the Innovation Forge. Let's see how our Marketing Maven and music take shape today. When I started my podcast, I was looking for a good solution for music, and my wife turned me on to Kevin MacLeod. And it's just a great library of music. And I thought I could use it for the podcast without having to pay extra money out of pocket to use and license the music, which worked really conveniently since this is a very much so a passion project and non-compensatory project of mine. So spending money on licensed music was out of the budget. I just really liked the music he put together. He puts together a lot of different styles of music, different types of music. And I spent way too much time going through his library of work to pull a bunch of songs that I could use during under my talking bed, intros, in between segments, even in the outro. I cut together, I think it was 2 or 3 pieces of different music just to outro the podcast every episode. I have always had a love and fascination for music. I don't understand it. I don't have rhythm or understand or hear beats or anything like that. Anything that's actually music coded, I just don't get. But I do love it. I mean, I spent an entire decade of my life. Every Christmas, I'd put together a mix CD of music that I listened to that year, and I would just give it out as gifts to people. And it was a branch off of that old trend where you'd go get a random Wikipedia article, image, and name. No, the band name was from the Wikipedia article, and then you got a random Flickr photo or something. And I wouldn't do it randomly. I would go through and decide. But that was such a formative piece for so long of my life. And like I said, no real understanding in education or in music or anything like that, but just something that's always really connected with me. And over for the first year of the podcast, I actually started getting into AI music, and it actually really got onto my radar as an option to do for the podcast. But I was just this is gonna be too hard. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm not going to try to learn this while also trying to learn how to do a podcast. And then I was listening to an audiobook. I think it was Dead Outlaw, which was unaudible, and it's a musical audiobook. And it just kind of hit me like a truck, oh, this is such an interesting way to craft a narrative and be able to create a story with music. And so that's definitely what drove me to pursue the AI music piece, both for the podcast, but also just for the different episodes and the different types of episodes I was producing, and having standalone musical. I've done all kinds of stuff. I did let's see. I think I started off with an album where the songs were segments on the podcast and episode types, and then with all of the different enrollment aces, codex practitioners, those kinds of groups. And I started doing all of the narrative 3-act, 3-album pieces, and the cycle, which was a series told through albums. And it's just really interesting. And I always wanted to okay, I need to sit down at some point and figure out how do I craft actual episode level music. So the intro, the segment pieces. And I was a little nervous at first because I had crafted with Kevin MacLeod's music such a sonic adventure and that fit my podcast so well that I really enjoyed. I thought it fit the kind of motif. because I have a very that everyday craftsman, artisanal, blacksmith, medieval kind of feel to a lot of the branding and the aesthetics that I do. And I was able to find pieces from Kevin's library that just worked so well. But it was definitely becoming like, oh, there's this huge long, like 15 song credits I'm having to do on all the podcast episodes and YouTube videos because I just use so much music throughout the episode. And I was even starting to like cap things off with like a recap song. So I would do like an episode, like an interview, or some of the more branded thematic pieces that I do now, like I just like the trainings and stuff like that, all end with like an actual standalone episode song that recaps the content of the episode. So it was really just becoming more and more time of like, I just need to make this jump. I need to make the leap. And one of the things that stuck with me was for the outro song for Kevin's like kind of era of my music is it was a kind of a bagpipey party anthem. And I'm like, oh, I really like, I mean, culturally, heritagely Scottish. So I liked the bagpipes, and it was not like that more shrill side of bagpipes. It was just a really interesting element to that song that I was using. And so I was sampling other types of instruments, like, okay, what works well with the bagpipe and can form a really cohesive musical journey that I can kind of keep with my podcast episodes. And I really liked how it worked with a cello. And the cello, it was replacing the more stereotypical like guitar segments of the song, but it had such a deeper presence in the song. And I really needed something to kind of all tie it together, so I did a drum set. And it worked so well, and it just sounded so distinct. And again, I mean, maybe there's a million bands that are a trio of bagpipe, cello, drums, and if there, please let me know. I want to listen to them, because I think this is a really interesting soundscape that we can create with those three instruments. So I did a lot of generated so many songs trying to figure out what's the best way to prompt, and I use Suno for my music creation. How do I prompt these instruments in a way that I can get that distinguishable reoccurring sound that is kind of the feel that I want? And it was really allowing me to explore how to craft that kind of sonic experience again through all this different exploration. And it kept wanting to give me very like elevator music with like vibraphones and marambas, and I hated that so much. So being able to have these very distinctive instruments, still let it feel and live like a podcast, but not sound that like very corporate, minimalistic, sanitized for everybody style of music. And I mean, if you wanted to pick instruments that are not for everybody, I think bagpipe is one of the first ones you would go to. Forming the sound for the podcast is I was able to really try to give each of the instruments a very distinct like personality or persona or story element. So I started off with like, okay, telling the AI like, okay, yeah, the cello is just someone kicking down the door. It's the inciting incident to the story that is our song. And the bagpipe is that posh Scottish gangster. It has to add something interesting. It has to be intriguing. It's unexpected, and it needs to be able to work. But the drums is what's going to act as the suspension of disbelief for the whole song. Because with just the cello and just the bagpipes, it just didn't work cohesively enough to be able to give us like, this is recognizably a song. So the drums are able to hold it down and make the piece work really well. And in a way that we just couldn't get with just the cello and the bagpipe. But they do really drive the number. So you get this really just unique, interesting, entertaining, and enjoyable musical experience that I feel like is very unique and is very niche, and I feel like fits the approach I do with my podcasting in a very branded way. So yeah, it definitely has become, at least for now, a very signature sound to the podcast. And a lot of the music I've been doing lately has been those trios. And it is hard with where AI music is right now. Sometimes other instruments will definitely slip in. I'm not that zealous about keeping it to just those three, but I do try my best to make sure when I am trying to do the Tartan Syndicate sound aesthetic, I guess, I am trying to really focus on those three instruments. And it works really well. I've been on kind of like a pop punk kick lately, so it works really well supporting that kind of vocals and musicality. And I've been doing those for some of the standalone albums, like the On Deck with the Enrollment Aces and the Evening with the Codex Practitioners. I've also been using it for a lot of the new episode types that we'll be hearing in semester 4 and even further into the future with like Inside the Funnel and the Gilded Builds. Those have been very much so sonically in the trio, and a bit with that kind of, again, that pop punk kind of vocals and arrangement. So it's been really fun. I'm sure I've kind of rotated in and out of these different types of genres making the music for, so I'm sure at some point I'll rotate into something else, maybe with that trio, maybe not so much with the trio. And it's also been something that I've been able to use in other aspects, not just this podcast, but some of the projects I'm working on that are not necessarily enrollment management related. But I'm really looking forward to being able to have an in-house music style that I'm able to bring to the podcast and really be able to curate, like, oh, okay, this is music that we can expect, at least in semester 4, for the podcast. And it's funny because it is coming at a time where so many of the episode types that I'm doing right now with all the new like Funnel City files and the Gilded Build and stuff like that, I'm not even using the standalone podcast music for those episodes, because at the intro and outro are specifically those episode specific music. But I will definitely be using this cadre of music for as much as I can as we move forward. But that's enough about music. I think it's time for us to introduce the Marketing Maven. And for the last year or so on these Coffee and Coals episodes, I've been doing an introduction. At first, it started with our consulting cadre, and now this pair of academic semesters of the podcast, we're doing the enrollment aces. So our Marketing Maven is named Styla Segmentel. And once she was the quiet copywriter in the back of the admissions suite, watching colleagues wrestle with scattered spreadsheets and late-night email blasts. Then came the semester when engagement rates plunged and the funnel went quiet. Determined to revive the spark, she cracked open the Deliver console and found the hidden language of liquid markup. Every merge field became a note in her symphony, every scheduled ping a perfectly timed drumbeat. She stitched configurable joins into storyboards, mapping inquiry dreams to application journeys. And soon, her campaigns whispered directly to students' aspirations. Click-through rates rose like a standing ovation. Yields soared before the rest of the industry knew a new best practice had been born. The Maven now stands at the helm of every communication storm, turning data into devotion and messages into movement. She's known for architecting campaigns that reach prospects before they even realize they are prospects, using ping events and time-anchored behaviors as a conductor uses cues, and personalizing at scale with liquid markup and merge fields, running A/B tests so smooth they feel like magic tricks, and teaching fellow slate writes to turn data into drama and metrics into melody. You'll know her by her mottos: I turn pings into poetry and segments into song. Deliver is my stage, engagement is my encore. I write the messages students quote back on decision day. And of course, open rates are just the opening act. And that's it for today's Coffee and Coals. Thank you for joining me, and come back next month when we learn more about our next enrollmentees and just a bit more about the Innovation Forge. If you enjoyed today's episode, please grow the guild by rating and reviewing the Innovation Forge podcast, or sharing it with a colleague who needs to hear about these creative crossovers in education. The best review or comment every month will get an ebook of my book, of course. Particularly great ones will also be featured on future episodes. Thank you so much for joining me in the workshop today. Remember to strike true, and let's forge something extraordinary together. Welcome to the Innovation Forge. This was supposed to be the end, the last one. Just one more CRM, just Salesforce. I mean, so many use it, so many bend it to their will. I thought I would do it too. I logged in expecting dashboards, pipelines, fields. Instead, I found elevation. A tower unfolded in the interface, not a page. A place, each tab a chamber, each object a corridor, and each one different every time I returned. I opened leads, it became prophecies, opportunities resolved into gateways, reports reassembled themselves mid-render, graphs inverted, filters turned inward. I called it a bug. I called support. A voice answered, not human, not robotic, something architectural. It said, "You are not lost. You are inside your segmentation." I tried to escape through a sandbox, but the sandbox cloned itself. 4 versions, each one reflecting what I might have configured. Then the spire revealed itself. Suspended across the clouds of code and vision decks, it spun slowly. Like a cathedral orbiting itself, its arms held integrations like stained glass. Flows cascaded through it like liquid light. And its head was a dashboard of unknowable metrics. I tried to understand. The moment I did, it added a new object. Observer. I clicked it. It showed a profile. Mine. Logged in since before I began all of this. My access was not granted. It was predestined. Salesforce, the architect of the ever-changing spire. The spire does not serve your structure. You serve its schema.